15, 20, however long.
An hour. Are we live right now?
We are live right now.
Live.
Sweet. What's going on, guys? We are live in Austin, Texas. I have the Lazarus beer to prove it. We're having a great time. Just a couple hours ahead of the Cats versus the Texas Longhorns. I am here with Stephen Peake to my left and Zack Geoghegan to my right. How are we feeling, guys? The vibe down in Austin is immaculate, but I don't know what it's like back in the Bluegrass State.
Well, I don't know about Louisville where Steven is, but in Lexington it's very rainy and miserable here. So I'm glad that you have all the good vibes down there to save us. And I especially love your green background right there. Are you able to show off your atmosphere a little bit? I know you're probably
it's
on
my
a laptop,
it's my laptop, but like if you ever thought of like, hey, what is Austin like? Just in a picture, it's about what I'm about to show you. Just give me a second. Here you go.
I imagine trendy, modern. Oh yeah, that
okay.
Yeah. Well, it looks nice. They had Mr. Brightside playing, but Steven used audio magic to cut out all that background noise.
I assume that it's just on repeat.
It's all they play. There's one song on repeat over and over and over again.
But yeah, so the vibes they're fine here, but well, weather-wise they're not good, but basketball-wise, well, they're okay. The injury report has hampered the mood a little bit around here, but here we are, Jack.
So Kentucky is set to take on a 15-10 Texas team that has lost 4 of 5 twice now in the SEC. Like, the sky was falling when that happened to Kentucky in this recent stretch. It's happened now twice. You got the Boo Birds falling down here in Austin. I'm excited to be here and hear this is the first time that we're going to hear an opposing coach truly on the hot seat. I've never kind of been a part of the animosity directed toward the coaching staff. So it's going to be an interesting vibe. The Texas Longhorns are unbelievably desperate, Zach. Like that, I think that's the easiest way to describe it. When you have a team that is constructed really well, like when you talk to Mark Pope on Thursday, he was super complimentary of the individual pieces and how they do work together. But at 15-10, and their resume isn't very great. They haven't lost. They don't have any bad losses, but they've also only had 3 quad 1 wins. So, that's why they're living on the bubble. And it's well, there's a lot of talent, but why are they not winning these important games? This one is really, really, really important to the Longhorns if they even have a slight chance of making it to the NCAA tournament.
Well, luckily for them, they have one of the better players in the entire country. Definitely one of the better freshmen, and Trey Johnson, who is just someone who can score 25 plus on pretty much any given night and keep his team in a game. Like you said, there's plenty of talent up and down Texas roster. I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but Kaluma, they're one of their 6'7" forward or whoever, second leading scorer, first leading rebounder. He's still doubtful. We'll get our availability.
I believe on college game day, I believe Pete Thamel said that he was out. I think that was just kind of I think that was that's pretty important.
Well, that's pretty important, especially when Kentucky is going to be without, as Stephen was written down there at the bottom, their top 3 ball handlers. It is going to be a point guard by committee situation today with Kentucky. But yes, Texas is desperate for a win. Like you said, they've lost 4 of 5. They've lost 3 in a row now as well, though. Last time they lost 3 in a row, they got a nice bounce back win against Oklahoma. So I'm sure they'll be trying to do the same here against Kentucky because they need this one badly. This will be huge for their resume if they still want to try and make this NCAA tournament, make the big dance, which is about to be 76 teams. I don't know how we feel about all that, but
that's
coming.
Terrible.
That's coming.
That's terrible.
That's happening. So, but yeah, Texas desperately needs a win, so they're going to be kind of backs against the wall type game today. They've got some, just like we kind of mentioned, some really talented guys. Trey Johnson's really good. They also have their own Pope, not Mark Pope, but what is his name? Jordan Pope. Traymon Mark is another guy. I don't think he's missed some time, but they have a lot of really good components and players that the pieces just haven't necessarily fit well tonight or this season. They have a weird home record against the SEC. They're 2-4 against SEC teams at home, and their defense in those games is the worst out of any team in the conference at home. So for whatever reason, they don't defend very well at home. So when you're a Kentucky team that is going to be just hoping and praying that Kobe Brea and Travis Perry can get the ball across half court. And once you do that, you're going to be it's going to be fine. You're going to be able to just probably get all the shots you need and looks you want. So, but it's going to be a very interesting game. Like you said, like we've just already talked about, Texas needs a win. Kentucky doesn't necessarily need a win. They're down a bunch of players, so it wouldn't be the end of the world if I think they're a 3.5 point underdog or something for this game still. So
opened at 1.5.
Yeah,
but I think
it quickly got bet up there. But that's the whole. And we'll actually have to see if Arthur ends up not playing for Texas, maybe the line will change back a little bit after that. But yeah, so it's an interesting game. Not really it's kind of a house money situation for Kentucky.
So, Steven, are you angrier about the expansion of the NCAA tournament or Kentucky's current point guard situation and just the randomness with the injury issues?
Well, I guess I can't be like angry that guys got hurt. I mean, it's so frustrating. Anger, though, will come if they decide to move this thing up to 76 or whatever they want to do. Let's just give everybody a bid. Let's hey, what's DePaul been doing? They made a tournament recently. Let's get them in there. Let's let them have a shot.
Dwayne Peavy deserves a bid.
Yeah,
of all people.
It's insane. We want 15 and 11 North Carolina in there. Like, just make sure we get everybody a shot at it. You know, I went to Murray State. They got one bid out of that league. They went undefeated in 2015. You know what? They went undefeated and they lost on a buzzer beater in the OVC championship, and they didn't get in. You don't need it. You don't need 76 teams. 64 was fine. And what do we gain from this? What is the sport gain?
Nice. 76 would be nice if you would put that Murray State team in the tournament regardless. But that's not
what's going to happen.
Daniel Hager had a tweet where he was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see 12 and 11 Kansas State and 16 and 10 North Carolina. All these bad teams taking up all these. I guess how many would it go to more seeds? Would you have 17 seeds? How would that even work? Or would it be more playing games? I'm not even sure how that would actually work out because you're adding 8 teams, so you can make it a 17 seed tournament, which just wouldn't work at all, I guess. So we'll see.
It'd be like a play-in for the play-in.
Yeah. I think Syracuse was one of those teams that, like VCU was one of those teams that played in that 11 versus 11 seed game, and they went all the way to the Final Four. So that happens. Teams get hot. That North Carolina, NC State last year was one of those. They had. I think they had the actual 11 seed, but
so they had their play-in too. That's right.
But yeah, it's ridiculous. But that's a tournament that's already hard enough to win. Maybe the hardest postseason in sports to win, really. But I'm very frustrated, though. Don't get me wrong. It's not anger, but it's frustration. That this is just another game that you're going to have to, if you had everybody healthy, I would feel really confident about it. Instead, I woke up today. It's like, were you kidding me? Like, we have to do this whole game without any of the 3 top ball handlers. Like, is this the worst luck that Kentucky has had injury wise in the last few years? I mean, it's been bad the last few years, but it feels like to lose 3 people at the same position. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. Do you guys think they can still pull it out though?
I think Texas, especially without Arthur Kaluma, they're so vulnerable. And, there is such a fine line, Zach, I think, of, a team that is desperate for a win and a team that's like, okay, what are we playing for here? We know that, we just don't have it. And I feel, when the fan base starts to turn against the coach is when it kind of becomes some teams just suck. Sometimes the teams are desperate. Sometimes they have something to play for and they rally and they turn things around. But sometimes teams just stink. And there is a slight vibe with Texas that things just might be turning for the worse. And there's a bird now flying over my head.
I think Zach, I saw that.
It was. It's sitting right in front of me. The vibes are really weird here in Austin. I love Austin. We're gonna talk a little bit about the food and all the just the atmosphere of Austin. Incredible. But Zach, I wanted to kind of not drop news, but something that hasn't been publicized is there was a very real chance that Trey Johnson was going to decommit from Texas this offseason as the questions of Rodney Terry kind of. The gasoline was poured on the fire a little bit. It's kind of underwhelming year after year. And there was a very real scenario that I was told this last offseason that when Alvin Brooks, who was his lead recruiter down at at Baylor, it was a Baylor versus Texas battle when Alvin Brooks made the move to Kentucky, that Trey Johnson internally, like this wasn't a conversation like Kentucky, like obviously that was never a thing, but internally on the Johnson side, that Trey Johnson was like, what would that be like for me if I were to follow Alvin Brooks III to Lexington and be a Kentucky Wildcat? So Kentucky was a finalist, one of 5 finalists, and ended up
about that now.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the dynamic that I'm thinking of, where, Zach, I want to get your thoughts, because Trey Johnson is one of, very few talents like him in the SEC, averaging 19 points a game, as good as it gets, as elite of a shot maker as you could find. When you have a guy like that, where it's kind of an all or nothing kind of player, Zach, where if Trey Johnson, there's a chance that he goes for 30 points tonight, but there's also a chance if you can limit him, who else is beating you on this Texas team? So how do you kind of approach a game like this, where there's a clear superstar and a bunch of kind of like half-a stars?
Well, especially a lot of it is going to depend on the status of their big man. I don't want to keep pronouncing it wrong. Kaluma. If he can't go, then your scouting report gets a lot easier, because the Pope kid is really good. Like, he can shoot it pretty well. They have guys that can shoot the ball, but if it's just Trey Johnson that you really had to focus on, you just put Otega Owe on him and tell everyone else, just if you just do your best, like if you have to help and maybe double Trey Johnson a little bit too, especially if he gets rolling early, do that. But yeah, it's going to be, the scouts shouldn't be that difficult if in the event that Kaluma can't go, because you just load up on Trey Johnson. You still have a really good, because Trey Johnson's like what, 6'5", 6'4" maybe, so Owe is going to be
6'6", yeah,
6'6", so Owe will be a good matchup for him. It's not like you have to slide down and like try and make it work with Almanor or like Kobe Bray or something like that. So I don't think that's going to be too much of, I don't think that's like the main thing that's keeping Pope up. I think the main thing that's keeping Mark Pope up for this game is just that backcourt situation and how they're going to be getting the ball across and how they're going to be initiating offense. I think a lot of it is still just going to center around Amari Williams. I'm actually kind of excited for like what a Kobe Bray, a PG1 type scenario could look like.
The numbers favor him quite a bit.
On a small sample size, the numbers are very good. So it'll be interesting to see if that volume really amps up and Pope wants to put the ball in his hands more, because he is very calm and he doesn't like, and he does have like the best break in case of emergency weapon, which is a step back 3 right in your face that he can shoot from like 28 feet. So that's basically how Kentucky won the game against Tennessee, was him hitting those 2 big shots, just because the offense wasn't working. They had to get something. He's 6'7". He could shoot over anybody and it goes in. So the defensive side, I'm not necessarily worried about. Like, Trey Johnson can go 2 for 10. He can go 10 for 12. And I don't think it'll be a huge difference, whether or not Texas wins or not. I think a lot of it's just going to depend if Kentucky can get 80 points in this game, they're going to be fine.
Steven, I want to get both of your guys' thoughts, because the big news of the day, in my opinion, is the official bracket release. The NCAA Selection Committee puts out the official top 16 as things stand 4 weeks exactly. I guess 24 hours from today, it'll be 4 weeks away exactly from Selection Sunday. And Kentucky, Steven, comes in as the number 10 overall seed in a firm, like solid number 3 seed. The chairman, who's currently the AD at UNC, saying that, like, hey, we're acknowledging that Kentucky's dealing with some pretty serious injury issues right now, but their wins are better than just about anybody in college basketball. In fact, Auburn is the only team that has better wins in college basketball right now. Steven, how did you feel hearing from the NCAA themselves that number 10 team in college basketball, number 3 seed, and that, they're accounting currently for all, your concerns right now about the injury bug biting Kentucky just over and over and over again, that the NCAA is considering that, and they are super valuing these quad 1 wins.
I think it would be massive if you can get a 3 seed in Mark Pope's first year. I'll be honest, coming into the season, my goal was like a 6. Even when I saw the roster, I was like a 5 or 6. If you can lock down what you got last year, a 3 seed, and maybe you can avoid Jack Pilgrim this year. And look, Mark Pope, if I'm grading him so far, he's got an A+. I'm glad that the committee is looking at the injuries and taking them into account, because obviously, it's huge. It's huge. I think it's 2 losses minimum that you can count, and we still don't know. We'll play the what if game forever. Like, what if Kerr Kriisa was healthy and you could have had him come in and maybe he wins you a game. Like, there's so I'm glad that they're taking that into account. And a 3 seed looks pretty good. Now the 2 seed there, who was it again? Sorry, I remember looking at it and thinking, like, I didn't love the matchup.
Who was a lot of SEC teams?
It was
there. That's all I remember.
Houston.
It was Houston.
Houston is the 2 seed.
Yeah. And so, maybe not the best matchup, but I mean, hey, if we get to that game, if that's how it plays out, like, I'll take it. I'll take it. I mean, that's about as good as I thought that was the ceiling, honestly, a 3 seed for this team. So now that's where they are now, right? That's not like a prediction or projection.
Yes.
Okay. Because I mean,
as things stand today, they are the number 10 team in college basketball and the number 3 seed. But a lot of that is like, hey, you've already built up this much equity with the quality with the quad 1 wins and just the quality opponents, and no bad losses. Arkansas, bad loss for this team.
What do you guys think they have to do in this final stretch to maintain that seed line?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is you pretty much just got confirmation that you are an NCAA tournament lock, so you don't necessarily have to rush guys back. You can take it easy with Lamont and Jackson. You can, even with Andrew Carr, if you want to just continue to let his back play, maybe cut down his minutes a little bit even more. I'm not really expecting to get Kerr back at all at this point. I'm just kind of assuming that that's a whole wash at this point. But with the other 2 guards, you just get them healthy at this point. Like, you've got seven regular season games left. So just if you go, I think if you end up going 3 and 4 in that, like, I would be perfectly fine if the result is you get your 2 best ball handlers healthy by the time the SEC tournament comes around, maybe a couple games, but then whatever it ends up being. That's my big takeaway from all that is Kentucky's in such a good position right now that they don't have to force anything over the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think I don't think there could have been better news today from the selection committee when you hear them say, hey, we're valuing the quality the quad 1 wins and the quality wins above all else, while also factoring in the injuries. It's like there's nothing else a Kentucky fan would want to hear in that argument. And also just seeing how much they favored the SEC, where you have, Kentucky has 5 wins against top 6 teams in the top 6, but also within the conference. When you have, Auburn and Alabama and Texas or in Tennessee, Florida, when you factor in just how strong the conference is and how much they're weighing those wins and just the competition, you can kind of just, Zach, like what you said, you can kind of get comfortable with the injury situation and say, hey, if it takes 2 weeks for Lamont Butler and Jackson Robinson to get back to full strength or get to the point where they're 85% the rest of the way, whatever.
Yeah.
I would almost rather take some of these short-term lumps knowing that we're already ahead of schedule in the committee's eyes. So, Stephen, I don't know if that changes your thoughts at all, but I've been concerned with the injury situation. But seeing it from the committee's eyes today kind of changed my tune a little bit, where you are kind of playing with house money every time you go out on the floor, where you're like, hey, if we can steal tonight in Austin, if we can steal these next couple games, the question you asked to begin with, what does it look like down the stretch in these last 7 games? With so many favorable games with Vandy, with going down the list, LSU, if you can steal 4 of them, if you could win 4 of those games, I feel like you are a top 4 seed. I don't want to say lock, but you're in a position where you're going to be one of the top 16 seeds on Selection Sunday, and you kind of control your destiny from there.
So how many years have they been doing this early reveal? Has it just been the last couple seasons? 4 seasons?
It's not been a lot, but it's been just within the last couple of years. Yeah.
Kentucky hasn't been in it the last 2 years at least. It was nice to see our name up there again. And in Mark Pope's first year, that was pretty cool.
I gave a good little hell yeah whenever the number 10 slot came in.
So yeah, I mean, and so yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching the game tonight. If they lose, I mean, we got a pretty good excuse as to why. And if they win, it's like, holy. Like, how did Mark Pope pull this out again? Like, how did this coaching staff, how did these players, how did that happen? It's one thing to do it. I mean, Tennessee's really good. And the game, I think, was either tied or Kentucky was down by 1. It's one thing to do it for the final 8 minutes or so. It's another thing to do it for the full 40. So we're really going to see how good this coaching staff is if they're able to pull out some of these games. But I agree with you guys. It feels like house money tonight, doesn't it?
Well, and that's part of the whole injury thing too, with the committee concerning or taking that into account, is you can kind of, they're obviously they're not just going to stop using that criteria for these last 7 games too. So you can lose this game tonight and it not be a ding on your resume at all, because the committee is going to think, oh well, they didn't have Lamont and Jackson, what have you, and that can be kind of baked into their resume over the next however many games. So I'm thinking Kentucky's going to win tonight, though. I'm like, Jack, you kind of mentioned it earlier of like, there's a line between like, you're with the head coach, and it's a line of like, okay, the fans are turning on you. Do you still have your locker room? We're not in Texas locker room and all. Like, I have no idea. Like, they could all love Rodney Terry and be great, but there's also scenarios where this can be a loss that kind of breaks the team or something like that. So Texas is treading in very deadly waters right now, so they really have to come out ready to play, and I think you'll know pretty quickly if they are or not.
Is this not their Super Bowl?
Well,
so, and that's a good point.
A long time.
That's a good point too, because the fan base pushed all of its chips in on 4 days ago playing Alabama. The place was a madhouse. Like, being down here, I'll be totally honest. This is just me talking. Don't listen. I'm surrounded by Austonians, and ignore all of them. They don't even know there's a basketball game going on tonight. It's fascinating to me how many people you talk to, and how they're like, oh, they see my Kentucky gear, and they're like, oh, what are you in town for? And I'm like,
it was like Clemson.
What am I in town for? Can you tell me why I'm in town currently? So there is kind of a vibe around here, and I'm excited to get to the arena and kind of just, but I've been well-traveled here in Austin. So my brother lives here with my sister-in-law, my niece, so I've been here for a couple of days, and they've shown me around. Like, I went to a comedy show, been to every high-profile restaurant in Austin, and, trying to kind of make my presence felt like, hey, I'm here in Austin, I've worn Kentucky here everywhere I've gone. And the people that have come up to me have been like, oh, you're from Kentucky. That's so cool. Why are you here? I'm like, man, it really does fascinate me. Like, I do not get the Super Bowl vibe at all. Like, I just think they are so tuned out from basketball in this city, where football obviously is, top priority 10 times out of 10. But, like, there's just a total, not even acknowledging that there's a basketball team, first of all, but the matchup tonight especially. So I do kind of feel like what we talked about before, where how much does a locker room buy into that? Like, if you don't feel like the vibe is like, hey, we got to win this game, there's a must win. If everybody else is tuned out, you poured everything into that Alabama game a couple days ago, and they got their teeth knocked in. What does tonight look like? How does that kind of translate with the fan base, where you get the boo birds? Does the apathy set in tonight, where they're like, hey, we don't care at this point? And if the fan base doesn't care, I have a hard time imagining, Zach, that the players are going to care, because they're not going to really have much to play for, knowing that, like, hey, we're on the bubble, but also, like, kind of feels like our bubble is popping as we speak.
Yeah, Rodney Terry's career trajectory is very fascinating. How it just nosedived immediately. Like, you have the Elite Eight in his first season. Or how did that work? Did he take over for Chris Beard mid-season, or how did that?
And that team made a run, and that's kind of like why they were like, well, I guess we got to hire this guy full time, and then it's been like,
yeah, then a round of 32 last year. So it's like the guy's still, got 2 NCAA tournament appearances. He's got more NCAA tournament wins than Mark Pope does. But right now, it's the coaching. I think Brandon Ramsey is not a big fan of. He's let us know that he's not a big fan of Rodney Terry's coaching, which usually tells me that maybe he's on to something about that. So I think Kentucky's going to have a coaching advantage tonight if you want to look at it that way. Like, I don't think being down all his ball handlers will be. It's going to keep Pope up at night, but I don't think it's anything that he's like, all right, we can't win this game. I think he's going to figure that out. But yeah, the Rodney Terry situation is definitely interesting, and I'm sure it's not. It's probably a little touchy in around that program right now. So it will be interesting to see how he comes out and responds, and how all his players maybe rally around each other or their coach. And I don't know how much all that actually even plays into, how guys go out there and play. I did not play college basketball. I was not in the locker room for any of that, so I don't know. But it's definitely something to think about.
There are so many birds flying around me right now. There's one staring me right in the face as we speak. Oh, yeah.
What's the temp down there, Jack?
So it's been like 40, 45 degrees the last 2 days, and today it is 72 degrees and like not a single cloud in the sky. It is the most beautiful day of all time. Like it is. And the food down here, I've never had better food in my life. I have had pizza, I've had barbecue, I've had breakfast tacos, I've had regular tacos. Incredible food. The drinks, the margaritas, the beers, Austin is a vibe. It is a really, really fun time. I'm having a really good time. But I'm kind of buying into hey, these guys are just kind of enjoying themselves and not focused at all about a basketball game being played tonight. I feel weirdly confident, Steven. Like, I don't know why, and I think I probably feel more confident now that Arthur Kaluma, I'm assuming he's out. I'm going to trust Pete Thamel's word this morning on game day.
We always trust Pete.
Yeah, when you have your second leading scorer out for a team that's already not very good, when you have a guy like Trey Johnson who's very good, unbelievably talented, but he now has hey, the game is on your shoulders, kid. Figure it out. How are you going to respond to this adversity? I have a feeling that Trey Johnson is going to take 25 shots tonight, one way or the other. Does he make 13 of them, or does he make 7 of them? Does he make 4 of them? I'm very fascinated to see just kind of that dynamic and how he responds to hey, Kentucky was a school you seriously considered, took an official visit to. There was a time and a place for him where this could have been his reality. How does he respond where backs are against the wall, he has no choice but hey, the NCAA tournament is on your shoulders. If this team makes it or not, how do you respond? There is a chance that he goes for 40 tonight, but there's also a chance for a clunker. And there's this guy in the chat that keeps saying, yeah, we're going to lose by 20 points or whatever. Oh, we're destined for a clunker. There's a chance that Texas is destined for a clunker as well. I'm just curious your thoughts on that, Stephen.
Well, right before we started this, I'll be honest, my confidence level was pretty low. You guys have actually raised my confidence quite a bit. So yeah, tip of the hat to you guys. Well, I mean, like I said, I woke up this morning and I was just like, gosh, man, we got to figure out a way to win this thing with the players we have, and I wasn't feeling good about it. But I'm starting to trend towards, I don't know. I'm expecting a win still, but feeling a little bit better about it. Feeling a little bit better. I guess what you guys are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Kentucky doesn't actually have to play a perfect game, kind of like we thought going into some of these games where they would be shorthanded, where it was like, hey, look, you're going to have to shoot 43s, and if you make 20 of them, you're going to win. You don't feel that way. You guys don't feel like Kentucky needs to just pull a bunch of threes today? Now, I mean, you have Kobe Brea with the ball in his hand more, so hopefully he does take some more threes, but is that the vibe? Is that kind of what we're feeling? Like Kentucky can play their B game tonight and still escape with a win?
Exactly. You have been all over it in terms of the defensive numbers for Texas once they got to the SEC have just fallen off a cliff, and there is a path here where Kentucky can play its B game and still win. And again, we're still talking about Kentucky missing its second and third leading scorer. So, I'm not trying to say that Kentucky is this world beater, but the confidence that Trent Noah has found, the confidence that Travis Perry, especially in this last game, where he's kind of like, okay, I'm seeing shots fall for me. I'm not getting the ball turned over. Like I'm not feeling the pressure in turning the ball over and having the questioning my confidence. You're getting the role guys that were the 9, 10, 11, 12 players on the roster. They are shining in ways. Ainsley Almenar, don't even get me started on him. He has been absolutely terrific as a bird flies past me again. Yeah, great. Ambiance is just amazing. When you have those guys gaining confidence the way they are, it's about the momentum. It's hey, what reason do you have for confidence right now? Texas really doesn't have a lot of it right now, where Kentucky, where they need the sources of confidence, they're gaining it in the right ways with Trent Noah, with Travis Perry, with Ainsley Almenar. That's where my confidence comes from personally, Zach.
Yeah, there's definitely a big mental aspect to this game on both ends, but and that's why Pope was playing Trent Noah, Travis Perry, Colin Chandler all these minutes early in the season. Some of it was due to the injuries that have just kind of been nonstop, but part of it was so you can have them ready for moments against Tennessee, to where you have guys step up, and we've seen Trent Noah do this on the road too. So we know that these kids can come into this situation and fill these roles fine and play well. I'm sure we'll see some Colin Chandler minutes tonight. I don't know how much I want any of those guys really bringing them the ball up the floor. That's kind of my big worry. But kind of to go back to the main point, yeah, I do think Kentucky can win this game with their B game. That depends on Texas playing like a C game as well, though. If Texas plays their A game, I think they're going to win this one 9 times out of 10. But they're just a team that hasn't really done that lately. There's not really any signs that say that this will be the game that turns it around. It's not like this is their big Super Bowl, like you've mentioned, Jack. This isn't like a poster game or something, a T-shirt game or anything like that. I think ultimately it just comes down to, can you get into your offense quick enough without any just bad live ball turnovers where Travis Perry's getting picked in the half court or Amari's dribbling the ball off his foot. Those are the things that really need to be tightened up. I don't think this is a game where Kentucky's going to be able to shoot 33s, because one of the guys that shoots 8 of those a game is not playing, and the guy that helps open up 5 of those a game is also not playing. So it's just going to, and the guy that is going to be trying to do both of that is going to be trying to set up people to shoot threes and also shooting the threes, and Kobe, it's just going to be hard for him, I think, to even fire off 10 in this game, even if he does kind of have the break in case of emergency, shoot him type thing. He's just going to be on the ball a lot. So, or at least I think, it could be completely different. It could be, I honestly don't know what Pope's going to do. I imagine they'll just try and get the ball up to half court with whoever can get it there, whether it's Owe or
Amari.
Or Amari. Well, we have seen Amari do that sometimes, and he can make it happen. But once you get it across half court, you're just going to flow right into your offense where Amari's at the top of the key anyways, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And especially if there's no, I'm sure they have some other big center who will try and match up with Amari, but without Kaluma, you're going to have opportunities for offensive rebounds in this game. There's the opportunities to generate points outside of firing up 33s, without having to have your lead ball handler, I think will be there. It's just a matter of taking advantage of them. So the coaching aspect in that regard could be very key to this game. Does that give Kentucky a 10% edge? If so, that's probably enough to end up pulling this game out. So,
is the last time we played here was Patrick Sparks hit the 3 at the top of the key?
Yes, it sure was. So
we lost that game, but
yeah,
we've never played Texas in Austin.
Yeah, this is only the 3rd ever Texas game. The last one I was actually at, I remember it. It was the one with the 2015 team in Rupp Arena.
Oh, yeah.
Top 10 team. The score was actually closer than I remember. It was only a 13-point win for Kentucky, but I remember that game being like a boat race the whole time.
Number 1 versus number 6, yep.
Yeah, I remember Kentucky just kind of smacking them the whole time. I do remember I was the one that did the student ticket lottery with my group of buddies, and we were the very last group called, and that was my last time that they let me do that. So I had my back on the wall in the upper level of Rupp Arena, but I remember looking down from 1,000 feet in the air and seeing Karl Anthony Towns just beat the hell out of that Texas team. And the other one was in the 90s or something like that. The first
1993 was the last time.
Yeah,
it was in the Maui Invitational.
Shout out,
what's that?
Man.
What's that? Do we ever play in that?
Not anymore, but
maybe one day.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. It'll be fun to play Texas. You just haven't done it yet. I'm sure that the stats on playing Oklahoma are similar, so we'll go through kind of this whole thing in a few games. But
does it help you? Zach, does it help you at all that that Pope specifically is coming off of kind of like a preview run in the Big 12, if you will, getting to play him last year, got a win out in Provo?
I'm sure it helps a little bit. I actually didn't look at the numbers of like, how Jackson did, or I guess it doesn't matter anymore because he's not playing. But I didn't look at the, how they performed against like Texas and Oklahoma and all that. I might go back and do that when we get done here. But I'm sure that definitely helps. Like, you've played Rodney Terry before. You kind of have a sense of what they can bring to the table. So in that sense, yeah, I'm sure it'll help a little bit. But this is still a much different tech. Like those Texas teams, or that Texas team last year at least was good, or like generally decent compared to this one, which just isn't. So maybe just a little bit.
All right, I think we turned this into a mini podcast preview. So I kind of like the, when you do the walk-in talk, it kind of turns into like, okay, we don't know how long we've been talking, but now that we can see, it's like, hey, we turned this into a little mini podcast. We can start wrapping this thing up. Let's kind of wrap up with our official MVP picks and our official game picks. Stephen, I want to start with you. How do you think tonight goes? I know you've been a little bit kind of in the dumps. Or has your tune shifted ever so slightly?
No, and I've been feeling good. We got it beat Tennessee, swept Tennessee. How can I be upset? But I will say this: before we started this, 36 minutes ago, I was picking a Kentucky loss, and it was going to actually say, it ain't that big of a deal. It is what it is. You're down a bunch of guys. Forget that. 81-77 Kentucky. They're going to squeak it out.
Like
MVP is going to be. It has to be Kobe Brea. He's going to hit at least 4 threes. I think Kentucky figures it out, finds a way. And I think as long as they don't beat themselves, don't do any dumb things, I don't think this Texas team is capable of beating them. So let's do it. We beat one orange UT on Tuesday, beat another orange UT on Saturday.
Yeah.
Zach, let's ride.
I was actually very close to Steven's score. I'm saying 81-75 Kentucky. I'm going to go Amari as my MVP, kind of just on the same line of thought with Steven with Kobe, where he's just going to have the ball a lot, I think, today. If there's no Kaluma, it's just gonna be an opportunity for him to easily feast on the glass. Like, we should probably see a nice tidy little double from Amari in this one. So Trey Johnson's gonna hit a couple of 28-footers, and we're gonna throw our hands in the air like, how did that go in? Like, that's gonna happen. Like Jack said, he'll probably try and take 20 attempts, like at least try and get over that 15 shot mark. Let me actually see how many he shoots per game, just so I can have that in my head. 15.3 a game. I'd say the over will hit on his shots, or his season average for that. So double from Amari. Cats just pull it out, but would not shock me no matter how the game ends. Nothing would really shock me when you're down. Everything we've said over the last 40 minutes, I can kind of go back to the point of not having Lamont and Jackson and just say anything can happen when that's the situation. So I'll at least throw that caveat in there.
It's been really weird how, and there's the Peanut Bee posse said, "Oh God, Jack, please pick Texas."
Peanut butter.
No, I'm not going to do that. I felt so much worse when Arthur Kaluma, like just kind of the idea of Arthur Kaluma, where that's kind of like, hey, he's a really good counter to what Kentucky's, what the game plan is going to be without the point guards. But when you factor his absence, I feel like Lamont Butler and Jackson Robinson out, Arthur Kaluma out as well. There's enough of a balance there where I'm going to take the rest of the personnel, because I just don't think there's I don't want to overstep, but like I just don't think that that Texas has the talent to match even the rest of the guys that Kentucky has. If Trent Noah had been struggling, if Travis Perry had been struggling, if Ansley Allman hadn't emerged the way he has, I'd probably be feeling different about this. But because we're feeling so good about this team's depth and the confidence that they're gaining, I feel really good about just kind of where both teams are, where the desperation, Kentucky's just kind of rolling and kind of finding itself and wanting to get its first 3-game winning streak since the start of 2025, since the start of SEC play, while Texas is kind of figuring out what its identity is going to be. I think that favors the Cats, and I feel pretty good about it. I'm going Kentucky wins 79-72, and I'm going Trent Noah as the MVP. I know Kobe Brea is the cop-out answer. I think that there, a lot of guys are going to step up. It's going to be a very similar game plan identity to what we just saw with Kentucky. Kind of win, nobody scoring 20 plus. It's going to be kind of like 5 guys scoring in double figures, but I think Trent Noah is going to hit some really big shots and kind of emerge as the guy off the bench that we've been kind of waiting for one of those freshmen to be like, hey, is it your time? I think Trent Noah is going to prove that it's his time, and I'm going to say he's our game MVP. So here we go. We are just a couple hours.
Andrew Carr game as well with no Kalum. Look out for maybe a big Andrew Carr game. He needs just some sort of rhythm, momentum, just some sort of groove. Like if he can have a 5-minute stretch where he just goes out there and looks like the guy that we saw against Duke.
Hope he keeps shooting threes too. He had 2 go in and out in the last game. So just keep taking
Shoot them all. Shoot them all, Andrew.
Yep.
Josh Manuel says absolutely delusional, LMAO. So, hey, we're going to be the delusional Kentucky fans who are picking a Kentucky sweep down in Austin. We are just a couple hours away from tip-off. I'm going to enjoy one more beer before I head to the arena, and we'll just see. This arena's only been around for a couple years now, so I'm excited to see just kind of the vibe of it. But the fan base, I need to see more from the Longhorn basketball diehards because I have just not seen anything.
All 6 of them
thus far. Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of people that are caring too much about the basketball program. So I hope that translates to the crowd. I hope the crowd absolutely stinks tonight, and I hope the Cats go ahead and turn this 3-game winning streak for the first time in SEC play. So let's make this thing happen for Jack Pilgrim, for Stephen Peake, and for Zack Pilgrim. We will Zack Geoghegan. I'll see you on the other side of hopefully a big Kentucky win. Go Cats.